Street Fair, Book 2 of the Fair Folk Chronicles, written by Jeffrey Cook and Catherine Perkins, narrated by Fairy Princess Lolly. Chapter 11, The Grey Lady. But the part about 7 dead pallbearers far from the corpse, what does that mean? Megan pondered aloud. And if our now headless guy's one of the 7, why are there only 4 X's? We only have half the map, Justin pointed out. The next closest one is deeper in the swamp, with the footnote that we should watch for wisps. Well, Kasha said, the swamp here is the Grey Lady's turf. Aisling made a humph sound. We should probably ask her about the place then, Justin said. At least see if she's home before crossing her territory. Heck no, said Aisling. Aisling, Justin said, this can't be the first time you've needed to deal with someone you can't stand. You've worked too much in a royal court. Megan frowned. She wasn't really comfortable with the idea either. Her father's former seneschal wasn't someone who inspired trust in anyone present. Still, Justin's approach to how it is done had sometimes come through for him in the past. She looked to Lonnie, who nodded, apparently deciding to back her other brother. I guess we can try, Megan said. Aisling frowned more. Caw, caw. I guess you're right, Count, the pixie said with a sniff. If they're going, we need to keep an eye on them. And she led the way into the more tree-dense section of the swamp. The ground sloughed further under their feet. Eventually, the steady, flapping pace of the Count's wings changed as he hovered more in place. There, Aisling said, but I'm not going to knock. It took a moment for Megan to realize what she was looking at in the dusk light, given the construction. While many of the trees had wide root networks that rose, in places, above the water, these were exceptional, forming twisting walkways and a foundation. The trees that rose from them twisted and turned just as dark, with all the reaching branches and hollows as elsewhere, but growing together as natural building materials, forming a grand, if foreboding, palace rising out of the swamp. She had trouble imagining the kinds of sorcery that might have gone into building it, or rather getting the trees to grow and twist just so. Wow, that's kind of creepier than I'd imagined, which is saying something. Just wait, Kasha said. I've been here with Rick before. If she lets us in, big if, there's going to be what looks like a stick and a primitive hula hoop on the floor. Don't move those. There'll be a doll on the table. Don't mess with it. I don't mess with everything, Megan said defensively. But how do you know stuff is going to be on the floor or the table? You know how some grieving families leave a kid's room just the way he or she left it? Yeah. The Grey Lady's like that about the whole house. Even when she's moved over the millennia, all the kids' stuff gets put in the exact same place. Megan stepped up towards the door and knocked. There was no answer. She waited several moments and knocked again. Is anyone home? We could use some help. This time, she thought she saw a flicker of pale blue light, but the small viewing window in the door was above her eye level, more suited to the taller she than most teen girls. She stood on her tiptoes, leaning against the door, trying to get a better look. It was still not a perfect view, but she was more certain now that there was one of the will-o-wisps hovering near the door. That was still no proof, but strongly suggested that the Grey Lady might be there. Hey, I'm sorry to disturb you, she tried, but this might be really important. She was still met with silence. Give me the map, Megan finally called, reaching for it. After Kasha passed it over, she held the map up to the window. Do you know anything about the whites buried in these spots? The pale blue light intensified, and an answer came back in a whisper. I don't use their names. Lonnie stepped closer, nodding firmly. Darn right. They can just be nobodies. Well, except someone isn't leaving them as nobodies. We just ran into one that woke up, and someone might have Baylor's banner. The door opened without any sign of the Gray Lady's hand or any other. A will-o-wisp floated just inside. It began retreating further into the poorly lit home once Megan stepped across the threshold, followed by the others. The home was just as Kasia had described it, with a variety of simple toys and other artifacts of a small child's presence scattered about the floor, which was otherwise bare, as were the walls, save for the occasional torch. These, Megan quickly found, were similar to some of the magical lights in Faerie, providing light, though with very little in these particular cases, but without actually burning down or giving off much heat. Indeed, despite the flames, the building's interior was colder than the air outside. The wisp finally led them to the Gray Lady, sitting alone in a large chair in a library room, which finally broke the trend of the rest of the home, furnished in a reasonable comfort, with every inch of the walls lined with the kind of books Megan usually associated with words like tomes or grimoires. The will-o-wisp floated over to the pale she-lady, looking almost like a well-dressed marble statue, for the perfection of her blank features, perfect, that is, aside from the tarnish on her silver hair, the black curves under her eyes, and the shimmering, interwoven lines on her cheeks. "Hello again, Megan," came the whisper, originating from the will-o-wisp. "You mentioned the whites." Megan considered trying to find a seat, then just stepped up closer to the she-lady, holding up the map. "So you knew about them." It sounded dumb to Megan, even as she said it. Of course the lady would know. Megan just assumed whites were the sort of folk the Gray Lady occasionally had over for tea or something. "Some of them, yes," came the whispers. "I remember some of them from their breathing days. That one in particular." The Gray Lady finally moved just enough to point towards the X within the deepest areas of swampland. "Oh, well, good. What can you tell us about him? I mean, we handled the one, even when he sort of took us by surprise." Then Kasia spoke up. "We got lucky. He was just waking up. Burial chamber was barely disturbed." The comment from the usually cocky satirist caught Megan off guard enough to turn away from the Gray Lady and give Kasia a quizzical look instead. "Is that going to matter that much?" Kasia shrugged cheerfully. "Depends. If the kickstart was a one-time thing, they'll wander home and go back to sleep on their own. But if this collector has a cult or knows the right rituals or something..." "Then what?" "Then we're going to have one hell of a fight on our hands. They'll just keep getting stronger the more time they have to remember who they were." "Just so," the whisper added, bringing Megan's attention back to their hostess. "And all of them are different." She gestured to the map. "This one was a sorcerer in life, as were many of his followers. His tomb is not warded only by puzzles and gadgets." "So you heard about him back when, he was alive?" Megan asked. "I fought against him in life, when he was allied with the faerie, when he was esteemed enough amongst mortals that many of the faerie even knew his name." Megan didn't know a lot about the faerie, but it didn't sound good. "So, Justin's sword is pretty good against magic, and Aisling is good at getting into places, but you're not going to be cautious this time either. You'll investigate one way or another. So perhaps you'll let me help you," the Gray Lady offered. "You must really hate this guy if you fought him before and you want to come help us, re-kill him." "Not that kind of help. If Baylor's banner has been moved, then other parties must be told, and I need to look into other matters." "But you just said..." "That I would help you, and I
will.
She gestured to a spot further north on the map.
His tomb is well guarded by traps and sorcery, but it wasn't warded against the encroaching marsh. Water and tree roots have eaten into the Barrow Hill. Kasha may be too large, but the rest should be able to climb through the deep roots and enter the hall the hidden way. Follow the trickle of the marsh water and unworked tunnels, but use a minimum of light. You will need surprise and your wits. If he is indeed stirring, then he's dangerous, as the other 5 will be.
5, but did you know about the writing?
All of the tombs have plenty of writing, but I'm assuming 7 whites because of the shroud.
Megan looked back at Kasha. His cloak? I knew it was magical, but...
Powerful magic. It and 6 like it shielded Balar Beardera's poison eye before the storm god killed him. I couldn't mistake it.
Megan trailed behind the others as they headed back into the swamp, with Aisling, Kasha, and Justin debating the best way to go about reaching the hidden way into the barrow. The Grey Lady accompanied them as far as the door. Megan almost thanked her before recalling how opposed the Banshee Lady had been to her efforts to rescue her father. Instead, it was the Grey Lady, via her Will-O-Wisp, who spoke first.
How is he?
Came the small whisper. Oh, Dad? He's all right. He's been fretting about, well, not having anyone doing your job. Megan wasn't about to apologize. The Grey Lady had never even tried to contradict Megan's concern that she'd been involved in planning the ambush on her father. She'd just walked out without any effort to defend herself, so she at least knew something. If that wasn't enough, which, since Megan had only just acquired her father, it was, Aisling didn't trust her, and so far, the pixie had been the best guide to fairy politics that Megan had.
I see,
came the whisper.
Be careful, and remember your magic may not be up to that of a sorcerer's, but if your lessons have gotten that far, your counter magics may help.
I've learned some, yes, Megan asserted, trying to recall a few of the lyrics Aisling had helped her with, just to assure herself she could bring the right songs to mind quickly. We'll be fine.
We can hope.
The two spent a few moments looking at one another in silence, Megan questioning the woman's sincerity as to just what she hoped, and not quite able to bring herself to offer a more genuine thanks due to those doubts. The lady, in turn, didn't offer any more genuine well wishes. After several awkward moments, the lady turned, and she and the wisp disappeared back into her home, the doors creaking shut behind them.
Hello friends, this is Gunther Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!